Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I came across this topic on a guy I know, actually a pretty smart guy, goes by the name Trevor Johnson. Again, pretty smart guy as far as training and everything goes, and he has his own following online. But on his wall, he started a little conversation the other day of kind of laughing about the fact that in the training world, and particularly in the bodybuilding world, people sit around and they really want to argue high volume versus low volume. And he himself is a proponent of low volume training with high intensity, high workload, things like that. That when people are dying, the number one cause of death in the United States and most of the Western world is from heart disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer. All of these lifestyle induced diseases are the causes of death, and yet people want to sit here and argue about this. He almost laughed and said these are like first world problems for bodybuilders, basically. People are so privileged in the training world that they don't realize that actually everyone who's training is doing better than everyone else. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit. Let's talk about this. And it is an interesting topic because look at the things that we sit around and argue about. And I'm not saying we shouldn't argue about these, that we shouldn't discuss these things, because they are worthy of discussion. But when you really think about the importance of these topics that I discuss, that other people discuss, that people argue, that people debate, they get in heated debates over, like arguments. Actually, people actually believe that someone is a bad person sometimes for promoting a style of training that they might feel is less effective for a certain goal. And it's really comical when you think about it. When you really think about the differences in some of these things, because we sit around and we argue about high volume versus low volume, which one's better for muscle mass. Well, most people say, well, higher volume, well, up to an extent, but there's a limited threshold. There's a point where higher volume can actually start to really hammer your fatigue and reduce your quality of life up to a certain point. It's not necessarily better just because in the short term it produces a little more muscle mass sometimes. And we do know that there is a volume and a workload and a tonnage component. But there are valid arguments to lower volumes of training for certain circumstances, for people who aren't necessarily always pursuing maximum size, but maybe want good quality of life. They want to balance their gym life with, can they get good muscle gains, maybe not the last few percentages of what they might be able to get without being sore all the time, without being fatigued, with lower injury rates. So there's an argument to be made for that. But people argue about that. They want to fight about that and actually get angry over it. How about high reps versus low reps? Which one's better for building muscle mass? You guys know my take on that one. I don't think either one is better, and I think the evidence proves it. I think the evidence is conclusive. But we really sit around and fight about this. Like, people actually get angry about it. They get so dogmatic in their one viewpoint that they actually think other people are idiots or morons if they hold a different viewpoint on something that we actually know is equal. When you look at the best data out there, as far as the actual potential to gain muscle mass, high reps versus low reps are pretty equal. They're pretty equal in the right context. As far as their potential, it doesn't mean how you do them is going to get better results than how someone else does them, or even if you change your different style. But when they're both done in an ideal manner, yeah, they're equal. But we fight over it. People argue over it. They attack other people personally over taking a stance on this. Again, this is like first world problems for bodybuilders and lifters. It really is, when you think about it. When you think about it in the grand scheme of things. How about cardio style for losing fat? How about low intensity cardio versus HIIT or interval training? Man, that's a big one people argue about. Again, they argue to the point of, well, that's why this person isn't getting in shape. Really, I bet you the only reason someone, well, in shape's a relative term too. But if they mean body composition or body fat, well, I can tell you the only reason one person is fatter than another, calories in, calories out. It's pretty straightforward. But, we could argue about the cardio is how that affects it. But you know what? That's only when you discuss it in isolation. When you just start discussing cardio intensity in the grand scheme of a training program of people who are lifting weights and doing other stuff, that's a really complex topic. I think that's a complex enough topic that's an argument we will never end. It will go around in circles indefinitely, because I don't think there's a clear answer. But, people are very, very dogmatic in their stances on that one. How about fasted cardio versus fed cardio for fat loss? Oh yeah, there's another big one people want to argue about. Then we get into diets, man. What's the best diet for health and body composition? And keep in mind, these arguments are being held among people who all eat relatively clean diets, people who all lift weights, and people who all do cardio. Now think about that. People will actually argue about high carb versus low carb, high fat. And we'll argue about this in the context of, oh, your diet is right and mine's wrong. Now, I do believe there are answers in there. But it's actually dogmatic to the point of where people think other people are the enemy, that they're evil for promoting it. All the low carb advocates actually think people who work out and exercise and who are in shape, people who are way healthier than the average person, somehow that their dietary advice is going to kill them. It's killing people. You people telling people to eat carbohydrates, you're killing people. That's the cause of all heart attacks. And the keto advocates are sitting here knocking down saturated fat, and people on the other end are like, no, you're the ones causing people heart attacks. You keto dieters are morons. You're causing heart attacks to everyone. But the reality is, when you're in the fitness world, we can argue about diets like that. But the thing is, one thing those diets all have in common, they all cut out most of the worst shit that people eat, or the combinations. I mean, you want to die of a heart attack? Combine saturated fat with refined sugar. Combine the two together. Eat the two of those together in large amounts 7 days a week. That's how you have a fucking heart attack. That's a good way to have a heart attack. But, they want to argue that, oh, the other one's to blame. Well, none of the people who are following any of these different diets people argue about are doing that together. They're not combining really high fat with a bunch of highly refined carbs together. None of them are advocating that. Well, we know that's what kills people. I don't think anyone will dispute that that's a one-way ticket to a heart attack. They're excluding all that, and they're also eating mostly whole foods. They're all promoting that people avoid a bunch of foods, fried in vegetable oils, large amounts of table sugar, lots of refined foods. They're all promoting people eat whole foods, plenty of protein, plenty of vegetables. You compare that with how the rest of the world eats, the rest of the Western world, the rest of people in America. You really think either one is that bad? Come on. These aren't people who are sitting around eating McDonald's every day. And here's the thing. People are arguing this stuff about how the other side are just morons and idiots, but when you step back and think about it, compare the people in all these arguments to the average person in society, the sedentary person. If you want to die young and have all of these diseases we talk about that are the #1 killers in our country, I mean, let's be honest. We talk about terrorism. We talk about gun violence. We talk about murder. All this stuff, right? We talk about these terrible things that everyone's afraid of. Yet heart attacks kill more people than all of that. Heart attacks in the United States, even though people scream about gun violence or terrorism, people die of heart attacks at 10 times the rate they're shot with guns in the United States. How about diabetes and cancer? I mean, you want to look for killers. There's your killers. And the people who are least likely to have all of these problems, these life-ravaging, life-destroying, deadly problems, heart attack, all cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, who are the people who aren't going to have these problems? Who are the least likely to have them? Are the people arguing with each other about the best way to exercise. And it's really ironic, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, we should all be promoting general fitness. Because the activity that most of us in the fitness world promote is how you prevent these horrific, terrible lifestyle-induced diseases. But we can't quit arguing with each other over high reps versus low reps, high carbs versus low carbs, long enough to realize that anybody who's promoting doing any reps in the gym is helping people not have heart attacks and cancer. Anyone who's promoting having a stricter diet at all that doesn't include eating McDonald's 3 or 4 days a week and drinking soda with their hamburger, their double bacon cheeseburger, their french fries, and their Coca-Cola, I mean, that kills people. Everyone in this argument is telling people not to eat that shit. Am I right? Everyone in this argument who's talking about different types of cardio is probably doing some type of cardio. So, people who are avoiding eating double bacon cheeseburgers with soda, who are lifting weights and who are doing cardio and promoting this to other people, are technically saving lives. They're technically preventing these diseases that kill millions of people in the Western world every single year. Yet we all want to brand each other for promoting a different variation of it as, an evil person, for promoting a certain style of training. I mean, literally a rep range or a volume, high carb versus low carb. As if the people who are promoting the other are the ones causing all these problems. No, being sedentary, sitting on your ass and eating huge amounts of refined foods, that's what causes these problems. But at a certain point, all of us need to step back and realize, in the grand scheme of these things, these little things that we are arguing about as far as fitness goes, really aren't that important. Yeah, they matter, we should discuss them, but they're not worth screaming and yelling at people over. They're not worth insulting people over. We're all on the side of fitness, hopefully, trying to get people to just lead healthier lives. And that's really the answer. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.